Hello, everyone. So, just wanted to make this quick video and share with you something I noticed at the library as I was walking in. I got distracted by this, which is a DVD. It's about the Odyssey. And years after the Trojan War, Odysseus returns to Ithaca, haggard, unrecognizable, and no longer the mighty warrior he once was. Doesn't sound like the Odyssey to me. His beloved wife Penelope is prisoner in her home by suitors vying to be king, and his son Telemachus faces death at their hands. In this reimagining of the end of the most famous epic ever told, Odysseus must rediscover his strength in order to win back all he has lost. I'm gonna watch it, but it seems like a more depressing version of the Odyssey, where like the way I really picture the Odyssey is just Odysseus just scheming, like just completely focused and scheming with one goal in mind to make it back to his homeland. So I don't really like depressed Odysseus is like Odysseus isn't really depressed. He's Odysseus. It's like what's depression? The feeling that his enemies feel as they're dying? I guess that's depression, but Odysseus seems to me to have conquered depression by the power of the mind. Like it's sort of that's maybe he's reconnecting with that, and that's kind of like what this is. And as a culture, we're reconnecting with that at the same time as Odysseus reconnects with that through this depiction. But point is, I get distracted by the DVDs in the library, and I typically don't. I just have been going through a non-DVD movie phase of my life where I'm like must focus, but I'm realizing that I can kind of slow down and detach. I now speak business. It was funny. I was talking to my wife earlier, and I made some comment about someone not really knowing to do with business, and she goes like, "Why are you talking down on people?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm not talking down on people. I'm just making an observation." She's like, "Well, how do you know that? How do you know this person doesn't know what they're doing in business?" And I'm like, "Well, they said so." And she's like what? I'm like, "Well, if you speak business, it's like, what do you?" um, Basically just public advertising for consulting without any price structure or business model, and I'm just like, you don't know what to do. So but I learned how to speak business by just immersing myself in business, and now I speak business, and I've realized that business is abstract warfare and all warfare is based on deception. So, and then I also realized that everyone who's giving you ongoing attention is technically on your side. So that's when I realized that the deception happens on the outside based on appearances. It's not really, I don't know, like, so one thing, like having a massive following on YouTube is like a very intimidating thing for people in business. Like, oh my God, you have a following on YouTube? I have no idea how to get that. But it's just talking into a camera for years and years at a time. So it's like the deception is that, but then again, it's like, I don't know. I'm a real big believer in Ford. So I don't actually think that you need deception in business. At least I'm not currently operating a business with deception. At least I don't think so. But uh, most business is operated on deception. So that's where, like, here's a basic example. Like most supplement companies just literally repackage and relabel the same supplements as everyone else. There's no difference. So it's like, is that deception? Yeah, then they market and try to. There's a lot of like, it's not really deception. It's more the fact that if you can't figure out what the essence of business is, which is human behavior. I thought this was interesting. This is a book I'm reading on debt, where they say that economics emerged as a separate field of study apart from politics and ethics, which I thought was interesting because, like, in some real sense, I'm like, is there economics? Like, what is economics? I think economics is just psychology. I think we're really trying to understand human behavior, and we've created a lot of fields to try to narrow in on human behavior. It's funny, when I started this video, I was like, what am I going to talk about? Like, I don't really have anything to talk about, but I guess I just start talking and things just come. So it's cool though. So anyway, back to the point though. The point was I get distracted by this video. Like, ooh, movies. And then I go over and I look at Deadpool and Wolverine, the other video. I saw like the beginning of that in an airplane. It was just so gay that I just had to stop. Like it was just like, I'm like, this is just weird. Like, it's just weird. Like, why are you making a movie that is a superhero movie on the outside, but is really just a movie about a gay romance between Wolverine and Deadpool? I don't know. I don't know if that's really what it's about because I stopped watching it. But The point was that I was looking at it, I was like, should I just get it? It's free at the library. I can continue watching it at home, and then I could finish it. And then it was like, no. You got to do what you think the most important person in the world would do, because that's really what you think the highest version of yourself should do, which is really just what you should be doing. So I'm like, the most important version of Devin does not watch this movie. So I started looking at other movies, and then I discovered this, Into the Wild. I haven't seen it, but I read the book numerous times. Really enjoy the book. And then next to it is this. My wife has recently been obsessed with the Everest story. Like, she's been obsessed with everything about Everest. So I figured I'd get Into the Thin Air, and also Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. But this is another movie I was planning on watching. But I didn't know this movie existed. I knew this movie existed, but I didn't know I could get it at the library. I knew this movie existed, and I wanted to watch it, but I kind of forgotten about it, but I found it at the library. And yeah, it's just cool. Like, I realized, I'm like, you can get way better selection on movies at the library than you can on Netflix in these places, because the library buys the movie, so you don't have to keep paying for the movie. And then the library also generally only buys like better movies and only keeps better movies. So there's way better selection of also older movies at the library. And I'm just looking at the library selection, and I'm like, why do I go on these streaming platforms? They're really terrible. And that just brings me to this end point that I'll make about business in general, which is that business exists to give people more effectively and cheaper that which they would provide for themselves. So, and this means that business can't be predicated on human laziness. Because if, like, a lot of grocery stores, for instance, will, and like just places in general, use this business model where they're like, okay, we'll be a loss leader. We'll lose money on a certain product, but we'll get them in the store and they'll buy other stuff. I think this is really silly in the long run, because you're focusing on a gimmick. And I don't believe in focusing on gimmicks, because a gimmick is going to get figured out. Like, they'll figure out your gimmick, and then you'll be stuck doing that gimmick forever. So actually, I'm going to make this into a separate video, because my whole point is that the library has really great videos, and I'm going to make a separate video on gimmicks in business.